Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What's going on, Internet? Eric Van Holtz here, back again with another E-Commerce Conversations. Hope all is well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the podcast from me, I got Vivian Kaye of KinkyCurlyYaki. What's going on, Vivian?
It's going. How's it going with you?
Living the dream down here in Austin, Texas.
Oh.
I can complain, but I'd say I choose not to, but I also complain in person, so.
Well, I think we all have good reason, but yeah, if you choose to look at the good parts, then we have stuff to be grateful for, right?
So Vivian and I go way back. I think I introduced you to e-commerce fuel years ago. You're a Redditor, right?
Yes, I'm a Redditor, undercover.
So she hit me up on Reddit many years ago, and I think you were just asking for advice or something like that. And I just said, the community over at e-commerce fuel is a great one, and you hopped in there, and then I checked the member directory, and you're no longer in there.
Yeah, I was in and out, and then, finally I was just like, you know what? I don't have the bandwidth. Especially this year, my bandwidth just sort of topped out. And it's actually just recently. So just recently, I want to say maybe in October, I stopped being a member, but not because it wasn't a great community and I didn't learn from it. I was just at capacity and just needed to just sort of edit things out of my life,
Yeah, I hear you on that. I did that with one of my longstanding communities that I love as well. I love everyone in there. But, sometimes if you're not using something as a bootstrap business, you gotta cut expenses and you got to make sure you stay lean.
Exactly.
To make sure you're getting value. Well, first of all, let's talk about KinkyCurlyYaki and then kind of talk about everything you do from the big picture, why you're staying so busy.
Well, KinkyCurlyYaki is a premium textured hair extensions brand for Black women. It's a business that I started back in 2012 because I had a problem that I wanted to solve. At the time, I was a wedding decorator and I needed to wear a protective style that would protect my hair. So I'm out here in Toronto, Canada. A protective style is usually wigs, weaves, and braids. So anytime you see Oprah or Serena Williams or even Beyonce out in public, they're typically wearing a protective style. And so a lot of Black women happen to wear protective styles just because it's just easier for us to manage on the day to day. And, plus there's that, that good old societal pressure of what women need to look like, and especially Black women. So a lot of women tend to wear their hair, or they used to wear their hair straight. We used to put chemicals in our hair in order to mimic European textures. But, in the early 2010s, we were tired of that crap. So we stopped doing that, started wearing our hair more natural. But, especially those of us in the North, our hair's not suited to this North American environment with the cold, strips our hair of moisture. It makes it really dry and brittle. So we tend to protect it more often than not. But what I was finding was when I went looking for textured hair extensions, it was buried underneath the silkier textures. So at the time I was like, that's just weird that it wasn't easily and readily available for me to find, something that looked like my hair as opposed to, say 32 inches of blonde weave a la Nicki Minaj. Right. I was looking for something, couldn't find it. And I filed the idea in the back of my head because I was, again, running a successful business. I was happy with it, wasn't trying to do anything on the internet. Right. It was a service-based business. But then, of course, I did my own research. I was in Facebook groups. I was in forums, just trying to solve my own problem. And I was out there being Vivian, which is, just being, the lively person that I am, except on the internet. So while doing that, I sort of created a personality for myself. So I'll get back to that point, but there's a reason why I'm mentioning it now. I'll get back to that. So I found a solution for my problem, and then I started wearing it. So I went to a networking event, and another Black woman pulled me aside and was like, "Hey girl, like who does your hair? Who's your hairdresser? What's your regimen to get your hair to look like that?" And I just sort of looked at her and was like, "Girl, this is a weave." And she said, "I would buy that." And I thought, well, I bought it and she would buy it. There's got to be at least a dozen other women who would buy it too. Right. So in the down season of my wedding business in December of 2012, actually, today. So today is the day that I received my first order.
There you go. 8 years later, right? Huh?
Yeah, 8 years later. So I launched KinkyCurlyYaki and the business immediately took off.
You know what's funny is, as founders, you never forget the day of your first sale.
No, never.
January 28th, 2013 is my...
I remember the first customer too.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Hey, Tease, how you doing, girl? Hope you're doing well.
What was that feeling like?
It was surreal.
This is your first e-commerce, right?
Yeah, it was my first e-commerce business. I dabbled in it previously. Like when I was in the wedding business, I started selling, these rhinestone bands that people could buy, brides could buy and use as napkins or wrap around their candle centerpieces, that type of thing. I started dabbled in that. So I was familiar. But yeah, this was my first full go at it.
So you got the drug, right? That first sale that you felt like this was it, right? Like this is something that represented you as a person, like you're connected to the products and the brand. And then you just started grinding from there, or how did you go from there?
Yeah, well, that's absolutely what happened, except I knew nothing about growing an e-commerce business. I knew nothing about growing a brand. I just knew that I had the solution to a problem that I knew a lot of other women that looked like me had, which was finding a protective style that looked like our hair so that we could go about our lives and we could show up in the world as authentically as possible. So that was the solution that I had. Do I actually care about hair extensions? Nah, I don't really care about hair extensions like that. I cared about giving myself the confidence to show up in the world. Right. So I focused on that. And so then that's how I grew the brand. And then plus, I'll go back to what I was talking about and how I was in Facebook groups and hair care forums, because that's how I grew my audience. Except I didn't realize at the time that that's what that was. I was being myself. And then the funny thing is, at first, I didn't actually tell anyone that this was my company. I was also using influencer marketing before it was called influencer marketing. So, I knew another girl who wore kinky textured hair extensions, and I sent her some hair just asking for her opinion. Well, she turned around and created content. So she took pictures and posted a video and a YouTube on her experience with my hair, but she didn't reveal who I was. And I purposely did that because at the time, attaching a brand to the hair extensions wasn't a thing in our industry. It wasn't a thing in the niche. And I will add, I pioneered the niche. So the niche of textured hair extensions did not exist before I started this business. So I'm a pioneer in that. So yay to me.
I feel like our stories are pretty similar.
Yeah.
Like before Beard Brand, there really wasn't beard care out there. And I was the same way. I used to spend a bunch of time on the beard growing forums and, just try to figure out how to grow a beard and care for a beard and all that. And that was kind of how we started. Is that how you're able to, because you guys scaled up to a 7-figure, typically, those communities and those influencers can't drive you to 7 figures. Was there any other marketing channels that you embarked on?
No, that was it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was all organic and influencer marketing. So I hit my first million back in 2016 without any paid ads or even email.
Killing. You got your email in now, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I thought the funny thing is, though, the only reason why I had hit a million now, again, this is someone, I just started the business to solve my own problem and it just sort of snowballed. Like I didn't think it would become $1 million business. I thought it was going to just help me buy some Coach bags, go on a vacation every once in a while. Like I literally did not think it would be the business that it became. And what happened was when I joined e-commerce Fuel, they had all those flares. You know how everyone had the flares? And I thought, well, I wonder, I see someone with $1 million flare. Like, I wonder where I'm at. I go to my Shopify dashboard. I go to, year to date, and I surpassed $1 million and didn't even realize it.
You didn't even know it. $1 million business.
I didn't even know it because I wasn't keeping track of it. Sounds terrible, but I wasn't really in the business to make money. I just happened to want to solve my problem and solve other Black women's problems. And then it happened to make some money.
So at that time, was it just you running the whole business, or had you built a team when you got up to $1 million? Or
so I hired my first employee in June of 2016. And then by December, that's when I found out I hit my first million, but I'd actually hit it in early November. So even before Black Friday. Actually, Black Friday wasn't really a thing. It was, but I wasn't participating. I would only do a Cyber Monday because I'm like, well, I'm an internet company. Why am I doing Black Friday?
Well, we've all been there. We've all been.
We evolved. Yeah. But yeah, no, I was a one person company for almost 3 years and doing everything myself. So everything from packing up the customer orders to answering emails to doing the social media, all of it, that was all me.
You're up in Toronto, right? Is your business operations all handled there, or is it pretty much targeting American customers?
No, so it's all handled up here in Canada, but it targets American customers. Well, it's because that's where the vast majority of Black people are outside of, in North America, that is. So yeah, we target Americans. So I operate in US dollars in Canada.
How is that, like, logistically shipping stuff out? Does it take a while? Is shipping expensive? How do you handle all that?
Well, when we first started, it was because we used Canada Post to ship. Our packages are under £1. And so, we used to ship with Canada Post. But then I realized I live actually just outside of Toronto in a city called Hamilton. So I live 45 minutes away from downtown Toronto, 45 minutes away from Niagara Falls, New York. So I have a guy who picks up our packages. We print all our labels via USPS, and he picks up our packages 3 times a week and he drives it across the border for us. So we take advantage of the cheaper USPS rates and the deliverability.
That's awesome that you don't have any kind of like issues with, what are they called? Border control people. Like, what are you doing crossing the border with all these hair products?
No, he's a service. No, especially during this time, mail is an essential service. So as long as we declare the value and the goods, we've been doing it now for 3 years. So we haven't run into any issues.
Are there like customs that you have to pay or duties you pay when you cross the border?
No, not into the U.S. When we receive the shipments into Canada, when we import into Canada, yes, we do pay duties and taxes on that. But to ship to the U.S., no, there aren't any duties.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Solution to it.
Yeah.
So this isn't all you do. What else do you do? You're kind of like an ADD entrepreneur, aren't you?
I'm multi-passionate. That's what they call it nowadays, Eric.
I'm the ADD entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, what I do, obviously I've been in e-commerce now for 8 years. I've learned a lot. I've screwed up a lot. And so then what I do now, and especially since the pandemic happened, I also now teach e-commerce to people who are looking to open businesses online. So earlier this year, I started helping people who either sold, as brick and mortar, hurry up and get online so they could continue to support their families and their livelihood, to people who were selling stuff in person at trade shows and events and expos. I even helped a woman who had a indoor jungle gym. They shut her stuff down real quick. So she had to, somehow manage and make some money. So I helped her get online. So I help people do that. So I guess I would consider myself somewhat of a Shopify expert, but I call myself mostly a business encouragement coach because being an entrepreneur is a marathon. There's ups and downs. You trip, you fall, you lose a shoe, you got to get new shoes. It's all sorts of things. And it takes a special kind of person to do what we do. And so then I help mostly women get the mindset to persevere and to push through and to get over the overwhelm. And yeah, so that's pretty much what I do.
What drew you to that? I mean, why not continue to focus on the business and try to grow the business as far as you can? Or this is, I guess, is kind of like a 2-part question, but how do you manage both businesses? How do you manage coaching and growing your business?
Well, coaching really came to the forefront for me this past year. I was dabbling in it last year, but of course, what happened when COVID hit, supply chain issues came up, and I needed something that I felt like I had control over. I can't control supply chain. So what can I control? Well, I can control myself. I can add value to other people. I can help people, and that helps me, right? Helping people get their stuff together, get their businesses up and running in a time where it's crucial. That's where I felt more useful. So this year, I want to say I let KinkyCurlyYaki, just sort of stay afloat because of these supply chain issues. So I know for a fact we will not be $1 million brand this year. We won't be 7 figures this year. We won't even be $500,000, to be honest. And I'm okay with that because with this whole journey, it goes up, it goes down. And so this is the downtime and it gives me time to sort of reevaluate, what was working, what's not working. Before the pandemic, it was go, 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 go. And now it's like, okay, let me just sit down and just really, really take a look at this business. What's working? What's not working? What can we focus on? And then, work on that. And that's what I've taken 2020 to do, especially with KinkyCurlyYaki. And in doing that, of course, it allowed me to focus more on on growing my personal brand. So I popped up on a lot more podcasts. I popped up on, doing a lot more videos. I popped up creating content to help other people get through this time during a time where my business was, in the crapper. 2020 was all about taking shit and turning it into manure.
There you go. You got to get it working for you, get it productive. I don't even know like the logistics of like how the hair industry works. I mean, I know it's huge. I know there's beauty shops everywhere. There's weave everywhere. It's existed for decades, I guess. All my life I've seen it. So like there are supply chains currently built out, or were you developing kind of custom products and working with suppliers globally? Or tell me a little bit more about your logistics of your business.
So the hair that I sell is kinky textured hair. So that means it's tight coils, or it's a kinky straight, like a straight hair, but it has a kinky texture to it in order to mimic, hair from the African diaspora. However, it doesn't come out like that. So the hair starts out bone straight, and it usually comes from India. And in order to get it to look the way it does, it has to go through processing. So I have a factory that goes to India, sources the hair for me, brings it back, and then they process it. So they'll process it to the textures that I don't want to say invented, but I tweaked. So when I was first searching for, a tighter, curlier, coily hair, they sent me something. I didn't like it. I asked them to tweak it. And so they tweaked it to my specifications, and it sort of became my texture. And so then in order to do that, they hand roll the hair over these rod spirals. And then that's how the hair gets created. And it sits in the oven, like it dries. And then that's how the curl pattern is created. So there's no kinky haired girls cutting off their hair for these hair extensions. It starts out bone straight, and then we create a process to mimic the textures that we carry. So then that's where the supply issue came from, because when Corona hit, nobody was going anywhere. So there was no way to get the hair in order to create the textures. So that was a bit of a headache, but it's something that's sort of now there's this huge backlog right now, because a lot of hair extensions are handmade. Like it's not something that a machine can do. It's something that people sit down and do. Like my factory would have 20 people just working on, one order. So there was one person to hackle the hair. There was one person to sew it onto the weft. There was another person to wash it. There was one person that was doing all that job. So that's why, you couldn't get hair extensions 2 minutes after you've ordered it. No, it takes about 2 weeks. But with social distancing in place and people getting sick, etc., those 2-week lead times that we used to have turned into 30 to 45 days.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that sort of hurt my feelings. Right? Some products that we had that were handmade were no longer being able to be handmade because they didn't have the manpower to get them created. Right. So that's why 2020 was an interesting year for KCY. People are still ordering, like we're launching a new product, hopefully by the end of this month. It's still been a challenge, but it's a very intense, it's a very manually intensive, labor type of business because it's a human product. So it goes through all these, all these checks and balances, I guess you could say. It has to go through all this QA in order for it to even leave the country as well. So it's not, it looks like an easy business to get into, but it can be it's a very daunting business, I would say, but it's worthwhile, especially for me. I've had customers who were cancer patients who, they would go to the wig clinic in the hospital, and the hospital wouldn't have their hair texture, but guess who did? KinkyCurlyYaki did. I had a number of cancer patients who would send me emails and photos of them saying, thank you for creating a wig that would make me feel beautiful again, or make me feel whole, or let me feel authentic. Or, Black women stepping into boardrooms. One of our biggest customers is Bozoma St. John, and she's the chief marketing officer now at Netflix. And she rocks KinkyCurlyYaki, and it makes her, the badass Boz that she is. We help everyone from, the women in the boardroom to famous authors to actresses to, your everyday 9-to-5 women to your moms at home who just want to feel natural and authentic in the hair that they wear. And I'm really proud of what I've built from zero. And, I did it without any outside help. I didn't have any outside capital. I literally built this out of a Rubbermaid bin in my apartment.
One of the other things I've noticed in this time is trying to bring more awareness and support to minority-owned businesses. Have you seen that kind of community support for you guys, or do you think it's more lip service that's kind of going on?
That's actually a really good question. I know with KinkyCurlyYaki, one of the issues that's in our industry or in the niche, especially the Black women hair extension niche, is a lot of the brands are owned by Chinese companies. They hire Black girl influencers to front the companies, whereas mine and a few handful of other brands are actually Black owned. So it was one thing that they couldn't compete with us on is our story. So we made it a point to, and especially this year, we made it a point to really focus in on we are a Black owned business. I am 100% Black owned. I am like you. I get high on my own supply. I know what it's like to cry over a failed twist out because, you had a job interview and your hair wasn't looking right. I totally understand that. We saw a lot of support in that area. And then, I would say with myself, I find that it's been sort of bittersweet, with everything that was happening, especially with the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, brands that didn't pay attention to me before were paying attention to me now. And it's like, so I've always been here. I've always been Vivian. I've always been a 7-figure business, but you didn't care about me until Black lives started mattering. And now you need someone to, you need to trot out some Black faces in order for you to look as diverse as you claim to be. It's been sort of a blessing in a way. I'm one of those people who say, I can't complain about the cards that have been dealt. I just have to manage how I'm playing those cards. So I've just been taking the cards that I've been dealt and I'm playing the hell out of them, Eric. That's what I'm doing.
I always enjoy sharing my time with you. You light up the room, and clearly our listeners know that, but by just listening to you, it's just so much fun catching up and telling jokes. I think in person, I was probably a little more inappropriate. I don't even remember our conversations, like what we talked about, but I just remembered how much fun we were having.
You weren't inappropriate,
okay.
Not at all.
Well, I should have been.
No. No. No, the one thing that really stood out about me was that you were really you really told me like it was. Like you were just like, Vivian, it's A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3. That's what you got to do. And I said, okay, bet. This tall bearded white dude told me to do this, so I'm gonna do it. So, and I always appreciated that, even from the Reddit post. I was like, wow, someone actually broke it down and actually gave me tangible, actionable advice that carried me through my business. One of the things I take issue with right now is that there's a lot of programs that are being started up for Black entrepreneurs and getting them started and getting them into incubators and all that. We don't need that. There are businesses like mine that already exist that are already making money. We need more money to scale so we can also become a beard brand, right? Like I need money to do that, but nobody was listening to me until now. But I've always been here, right? But I've always appreciated how you kept it real.
Yeah, I take that from my mom. I always give unsolicited advice, whether you want it or not. So the great thing about talking with other entrepreneurs is they typically want that kind of unsolicited advice, whether or not they take it.
Right.
Or at least for me, I always appreciate people saying like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And what you're doing is dumb. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
it is dumb. Why am I doing it? What was the dumbest thing you've ever done, Vivian?
Oh my gosh. Oh, do we have another half hour? I would say one of the dumbest things that I've done in this business, I would say would be I listened to people who didn't understand my business or didn't understand my demographic. They didn't understand it. They were just simply looking at the data and what the data was currently saying. And they made a decision based on the data, whereas I wanted to make the decision based on, I know the demographic. I know my audience. I know what will work and I know what won't work. And I listened to them. And it was one of the most expensive mistakes I have ever made. And we're still suffering for it to this day. I thought we were going to recover back in January 2020, but then coronavirus hit.
What was that data? Was it like a pricing thing? Was it?
So I was supposed to participate in a subscription box. And this subscription box is specifically targeted to Black women and hair care. So it was the perfect box to be in. It would have just been like a line item expense, like a marketing expense for us, but the product would be going directly into our target demographics' hands, like into their laps. And this was a subscription box that had, I think they would sending out about over 100,000 boxes a month of product. Like we were going to do a limited edition box for them, but it would have, the person who owned the box would have been on the cover. Like she would have put her stamp of approval on it. And she's like the Oprah of the niche. And so it was a no-brainer for me. But to the people I had hired to help me strategize, they said the data doesn't make sense. And I'm like, well, this is one of the times where the data, like, you don't think the data makes sense, but I know this demographic. I know it like I know it because I am the demographic, right? And so then I listened to them. They said you could take that same money and put it into Facebook ads and sell the inventory that way. Because I was supposed to send $50,000 cost worth of inventory over to this company for them to market it for me. That $50,000 turned into, it was approximately $150,000 retail worth of inventory that I had sitting here for a year because it was only 2 SKUs out of the 100 that we sell. And it took a year to move it. So of course that hurt cash flow, that hurt, our marketing efforts, because now we had to put all our marketing behind these 2 SKUs, right? To try and recoup our money. But yeah, that was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. And what I learned from that is I know my business like I know my business like I know my business. I know my target audience. So although they gave me some great advice, in hindsight, I wish I hadn't listened.
Yeah, it's tricky. Like, I think there's, data is always muddy, right? You'd always wish it was perfect, but you have to use kind of like your gut instincts, which is like 8 years of doing business to be able to, you kind of know where it goes or doesn't go. We personally haven't had any success getting our products into those subscription boxes. And I think it might be more because guys, are different than girls. Maybe their buying habits are slightly different. And, for us, it was essentially like just giving away product to people who wanted stuff for free, and people who want stuff for free tend to not pay for things.
Yes.
Which is always a challenge. So it's always tricky. There's always those unknowns, and, hopefully you'll be able to test in the future. Or is that deal like completely washed up? You can't reopen it?
Well, let's just say after I pulled out, the person who owned the brand said, don't be surprised if someone else comes and takes your place, because she was willing to be the spokesperson, and she doesn't do this. Right. And so then it would have been like a coup for us. Like, everyone would have been like, whoa, like, if she says this is good stuff, then it has to be good stuff. But, it is what it is. It's something that I regret. Is it dead in the water? I'm not sure. But am I in a position to do it again? Nah. Not after 2020. Maybe in 2022, we're going to take 2021 to come back even stronger. Drop some new products, get on the TikToks, because that's what the children are doing nowadays. Create some more content, really take control of our brand story and really, lean into that.
How do you develop products? How do you find that process? What are you doing to get inspiration?
We just pay attention to what people are doing online. So especially on YouTube, Black women, we are very creative when it comes to our hair. And one of the things that was happening is, with everyone working remotely, working from home, we didn't have the need to go to the hairdresser anymore because, those services were closed. So a lot of us started wearing wigs and easy protective styling. So one of the products that sort of came out of that were people sewing headbands onto wigs so that they could just put them on really quickly. So guess what? We created a headband wig, a wig that already had it on. And all you got to do is flip it on and you're ready to go. So we just watch what our customers are doing and what people on YouTube are doing and just sort of, catch on to that trend. So if that's what people are doing, then let's make it easier for them. Let's solve that problem. Let's help them get ready for their Zoom call in 2 minutes or less. So yeah, that's how we figure that stuff out.
Well, that's exciting. Hope your product launch goes well. Any strategy that you guys do with a new product launch? Is it just email blasts, or do you do any kind of hype?
Yeah, well, we're about to get hype. If there's one thing I'm really good at is creating relatable content. So we're just creating, TikToks and videos showing people themselves, right? So we just plan to do that. We're going to do it first to our email list because those are our VIPs this year. They've been our VIP, our email list has been loyal to a T. So we're going to launch to them, and then we'll do a general launch to the public, hopefully in the new year. And it's going to coincide with Kwanzaa and Boxing Day. So, new year, new me, new wig. So that's how we're going to do it this year.
Where can people find out more about you? How can they support you?
Well, you can go to my website. It's KinkyCurlyYaki.com. So it's KinkyCurlyYaki.com. Also on Twitter. For me personally, I am an absolute pleasure to follow on Instagram. I'm known for my Instagram stories. Same thing with Twitter. So you can find me at It's Vivian Kaye, ITSVIVIAN KAYE.
Do it. Follow Vivian. She is a bright light in a world which seems to be a little bit darker than normal. So you need a little bit of Vivian in your life. I know my life is better. I don't know why I didn't follow you for so long. I guess.
You know what? You always think you're following people because you see them all the time. And then you realize, wait a minute.
Well, especially Twitter direct to consumer is so great because like it's just a great community. People interact and kind of tag others. And so it's been fun to watch your posts in my feed as well. So I'm so grateful that you came onto the show, shared your story, and hope our listeners were able to pick up a nugget or two. As always, this has been another e-commerce Conversations. Thanks for listening. Cheers. Keep on